100-meter distance course over a round buoy, turning round the buoy just the once, and the winner of the trophy of either Med or Calpe will be the best aggregate time of the 3 races. Let's have a look at some of the action. And first out into the harbour waters where the under-18s of Med and Calpe has a couple of false starts. It was a bit difficult to get the boats lined up by starter Cathal Yates. There was a bit of a blustery wind there that kept the Yolas moving to and fro. But eventually they did manage to get off to a good start. And Calpe crew of Mesa, Farina, Cabezuto, Darlington, Cox by Bonfante, trying to keep in with the Med crew of Rodriguez, De Aro, the 2 Viñales brothers, and Cox by Mark Hemi. Very close at the turning of the buoys, but it was here that Med started to just edge Calpe on the way back as they're just turning the buoy now. Med, who are furthest from camera or to the left of the screen at this very moment, can see here are taking the commanding lead now, one that they would hold right to the end. And Calpe trying to keep up with them. It was still going to be very, very tight at the finish. There was going to be just a difference of over 1 second between both crews, but it was to be a very good start for Med in the evening's regattas, and one that would set the trend for the rest of the evening's races. But this was going to be a very tight finish in the end. Med winning by just over a second, and Calpe making here one last desperate effort to close the gap, but it was not to be. Certainly supporters at the Med Club, they're now being jubilant and cheering their team on. Winning time of 2:01:38, following in by Calpe, who are coming in just now with a time of 2:02:55. First blood to Med. You can see there Mark Hemi, the Cox, who raised his hand in triumph in what was going to be a wonderful afternoon for him, coxing and being very influential in all the 3 races. And so on to the start of the second race, and here this turned out to be the biggest upset of the day, with Calpe ladies eventually losing out to a Med crew that had been second best throughout the whole of the regular season. In fact, they only won the endurance trophy at the very start of that. But as I was saying, Calpe ladies that had been so successful throughout the season perhaps were caught a little bit by surprise here. And of course, being a shorter race, Med built up a very good start, and they held it well at the turn of the buoys, and they were able to just take it by what proved to be quite a comfortable margin in the end, coming through the Med girls with a time of 2:28:51. So they're approaching the turn of the buoys now, and it has to be said that having followed the rowing season quite closely throughout, the Calpe ladies of Montado, Davidson, Asopardi and Grech, although surprisingly beaten here, they've obviously been the strongest of the crews as far as ladies rowing is concerned. Perhaps the shorter distance worked against them on the day, but they certainly were just as dignified in defeat as they have been in victory throughout the whole of the season. So really one has to congratulate them for being such a sporting and marvellous crew. It was not to be for them on the day, and it was going to be Med's day for once in the ladies rowing. Pensadon, Alja, Figueras and Wall coming through, coxed again by Mark Hemi, who was really enjoying his wonderful afternoon of rowing. The bigger gap here will be more noticeable as they approach the finishing line. Quite difficult to determine at this point because of the camera angle, but as they approach the finishing post, which is at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and will be coming out in a couple of seconds, the difference is more determinable. And here you can see Med in the foreground, as I've just said, comfortable lead eventually of about 7 seconds approximately, and they certainly enjoyed their victory. Arms raised in triumph. Calpe, the season's strongest ladies crews, defeated. A delighted Med crew there, congratulating themselves and being cheered on by their supporters. And on to the third race, the senior crews moving off. And one was wondering whether there would be another surprise in store after having seen the strongest ladies crew being defeated. if the Med crew that had won all their races throughout the season would perhaps lose out in a shorter distance of 500 meters. Well, our doubts were soon to be quelled, because the Med crew were in no mood to let a second surprise of the afternoon take place, and we were not going to be treated to another upset. The first 250 meters of the race seemed to be a very close affair, but as they approached the boys, the Met crew, with Peter Buttigieg in this time for James Viñales, and of course the evergreens of Tyrone Moreno, Liam Yates, Stuart Bensadon, coxed once again by Mark Hemme, started to take control at the turn of the buoy, and once they turn away, they are on the left hand of the screen. They are well on their way to yet another victory in this most successful of seasons for them. They're now turning away with Calpe chasing them, but it was not to be, and once more Med were to be triumphant. Their winning time of 1:54.16, with Calpe just behind them, 3 seconds behind, 1:57.90. So the Gibraltar Trophy proved to be a most successful day for Med, and they just carried on from where they finished off, having taken the overall championship trophy, the Garbarino, a couple of weeks earlier. Med supporters now cheering by the clubhouse as their crew is coming in. Calpe still putting in what I thought was a quite determined fight to close the gap, but by this stage, no matter what effort they would have done, the total aggregate of the three races was quite strongly in favor of Med. And there, the man of the regatta, of the evening's regatta, I would say, was Mark Hemme, the cox. I later spoke to one of the Med lady crews, Natalie Wall, and she gave me her impressions of their very good race. Well, Natalie, it must have been a particularly satisfying end to the season after having lost all races really this season, apart from the endurance one at the very, very start. Yeah. How did you feel at the end of that race?
Well, obviously we were very happy. You know, we could say we weren't expecting. You know, we've made a few changes and we hoped that it was a stronger crew, but obviously we didn't know, because that crew, the Calpe crew, is also very good.
Yeah, so obviously the Calpe ladies are very strong. Was the fact that it was a shorter race, about 500 meters approximately, did that help you towards the final outcome, do you think?
Yes, of course, especially after the summer. That's obviously we haven't been able to train so much because it's been too hot, and the shorter race does help.
So now that the season's over, what are you doing during the winter then? You carry on training, because rowing, of course, we all know is a very tough sport. Yeah. What happens during the winter month?
We'll start with a pre-season training, which is mainly land training, because as it gets dark very, very quickly, very soon in winter, we won't have the chance to go out in the boat, so we'll do running, rowing machine, those kind of things.
And are you hopeful after that last result there that things might improve for Med ladies in the 98 season?
Hopefully, but we'll never know. You never know, because they could make changes, or just as they are now, they're a very strong crew. So we can never know what's going to happen in the regatta.